NFL Sunday Ticket is now starting at $39 for the rest of the 23 season. So you can watch your favorite team in the race to the playoffs, even if you're the only fan around. Sign up now.
At 9:49, Little Caesars stuffed crazy crust.
3,
Stuffed crust.
2,
Pizza.
1. Oh, come on. YouTube, you the worst sometimes.
Everybody wants to help you work life. And life, where you can dream big in tech.
Yo, what is going on? It's your boy, Shawnee Sean, with another episode of Shawnee Ball and Friends. I don't know. Football recap. I had my NFL Week 17 power rankings released today. Definitely check that out on my Instagram, as I've got the Baltimore Ravens at the number 1 for the second week in a row. Some people thought it was a little bit controversial last week that I had them above the 49ers, but alas, you can see them right there. Congrats to the Birds. I was at the game last night, had a lot of fun. Merry Christmas. Got the dub. As you can see, Eagles win 33-25. My picks did not do so great this week, 9-7. But we will do better going forward and prevail. So it's not all that bad. Today I want to definitely talk about a couple things. Some things going on around the league. What teams I'm sort of buying and selling going into the playoffs, as far as the playoff picture. MVP odds, who I think should be winning MVP, or what the race looks like it's coming down to, and some other fun stuff. So before we get into it, let's have some fun. Anyway, so I think when it comes to the playoff picture, maybe we can get a graphic going up somewhere. There you go. Let's talk about the AFC and then the NFC. So it looks like a lot of these teams are in the hunt, as it's showing. Oh, this is a great graphic on NFL.com. So it breaks everything down. So basically, teams that have clinched their spot, looks like the Ravens and Dolphins are doing just fine. Looks like both of them will have a bye week and as the 1 and 2 seeds. And then in the NFC, it's a little bit tricky with a couple teams tied with an 11-4 record, and then the Cowboys just behind with a 10-5 record. Eagles are currently ahead of the Cowboys in the NFC East because they have the tiebreaker, and they split the series 1-1. Lions are creeping up and looking real fierce, with an 11-4 record this season so far. And the 49ers have looked really good until they played the Ravens last night. Brock Purdy threw 4 picks and looked somewhat pedestrian. Will be interesting to see how the Niners look going forward and really grow going into the playoffs, and then how teams will play Brock Purdy going forward as well, and then a bunch of teams in the hunt, and this is really where the conversation, the meat and bones of today's convo that I want to get into. So we can start with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that they are a team to buy as far as making it into the playoffs. Currently, they hold the 3 seed with a 9-6 record, which is not particularly great after losing to the Raiders and having a handful of losses. Travis Kelce hasn't really looked the same. The offense hasn't really looked the same. So we will see if they can fix things going forward. But I have faith that they will make the playoffs and most likely win a playoff game or two. It really doesn't matter about their seeding. In fact, to some level, they actually may get better matchups if they fall down in some seedings. So we'll see how the Chiefs are, but I'm buying them as far as being a playoff team, most likely even winning a playoff game or two. I don't know if they are a Super Bowl caliber team this year, unfortunately. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I am buying on them. I know that they have not looked so great with a 4-game losing streak. And the injuries to Trevor Lawrence as of late with the concussion protocol, shoulder injury. I think he had an ankle injury. And losing to Tampa doesn't help either, but I think that they can turn things around. They've got pretty easy matchups going forward, playing Carolina and Tennessee, both teams that have less than 5 wins or less. So I think that Doug Peterson, even with the backup quarterback, if necessary, can get these wins and get 10 wins, and that's pretty big for Jacksonville. 10-7 is pretty exciting, if you ask me. If I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, they're definitely trending in the right direction. Moving on to the Cleveland Browns, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the 10-5 Cleveland Browns, led by Joe Flacco, of all people, who was on his couch maybe a month or two ago, might lead this team leading them to the playoffs. I'm pretty sure they are going to the playoffs. They're like 99% chance of making the playoffs. It's just, the seeding may vary a little bit, but they're looking very good in with Kevin Stefanski and Joe Flacco leading that offense. He was really clicking on all cylinders with Amari Cooper. I think he had like 260 yards and 2 touchdowns. Literally incredible wide receiver performance. I think it was one of the greatest wide receiver performances in Browns history. So congratulations to you there. Yeah, we got sound effects. Yeah, but I am excited to see what the Browns can do, honestly, with Joe Flacco leading the way. They've got a great defense. I've been talking about their defense all season. But the resurgence of Joe Flacco, I mean, dude's 39 years old and used to play for a division opponent and tear up the Browns. And now, of all people, like he might have a Nick Foles run for all we know, and that would be incredible. As an Eagles fan, I'm a little worried to see if Joe Flacco can do something like that, because I've seen it with my own eyes, and it would be very exciting for Browns fans, considering they had Baker Mayfield and had a decent run with him. They made the playoffs, but they didn't think it was good enough, so they make the big move to get Deshaun Watson, and things haven't really worked out. He's been injured a lot of the time, and maybe it's just getting paid and just not being as motivated. But ultimately, the Browns may have found their savior in Joe Flacco. But I like them making the playoffs. I think they, like I said, have pretty much a 99% chance of making the playoffs. Their seeding may vary a little bit, but I'd love to see them win a playoff game with Joe Flacco. Moving on to number 6 in the AFC, I guess, which is the Buffalo Bills with a 9-6 record right now, the second in the AFC, with an 87% chance of making the playoffs, so a very high probability. And they've really looked very good as of late, the past few weeks. Josh Allen has really taken over, even though he hasn't actually had to do that much. I mean, I think last week he threw like 9 completions. But the emergence of the run game and James Cook has really looked good. Leonard Fournette, I totally forgot that they even had him, but he looked like he was really contributing well. Playoff Lenny, baby. And, they do just enough to get by the Chargers, but, stacking up some wins and getting ready for some January football. So I'm excited to see Josh Allen in the playoffs. And, I have some friends who are really big Bills fans, and it felt like they were losing hope a couple weeks ago. But it's really nice to see them reemerge into the playoff picture and hopefully get their playoff hopes back in, or Super Bowl hopes back in line. Definitely want to see that passing game open up again, though, because Stephon Diggs hasn't really done much over the past few weeks, and Gabe Davis had a very good week this past weekend, but the 2 weeks before that, I think he had goose eggs, so hopefully he improves in that department. And then in the NFC, hold on, let's talk about some pretenders in the AFC, and that goes to the Colts that we'll start with. I don't think that they're looking so great as of late with an 8-7 record. The Minshew Magic may have a run out. They've been a really fun team to root for, and I really think that Shane Steichen deserves a lot of credit getting this Colts team where it needs to be. But ultimately, I think that the Minshew Magic's just catching up to him, and not having Jonathan Taylor for a week or two definitely hurts as well. So I am selling on the Colts' chance is of winning, and I think they have pretty tough matchups with the Raiders and Texans. So moving on to the Texans, who I'm also not really loving as of late. I've really been rooting for them to make the playoffs, and I'm really hoping that they have the outside chance. Love DeMeco Ryans. Hopefully he gets some serious consideration for Coach of the Year, along with his quarterback in CJ Stroud, who will likely get some Rookie of the Year nominations. Most likely will win it, and Will Anderson on defense. So they definitely have some good pieces going forward. Derek Stingley, but maybe just not enough to turn things around this year and make the playoffs. Although we'll see. I mean, the probability says 37% chance, so it's still a decent shot. Things can potentially go their way, but we will see. It really depends on the health of CJ Stroud, who's still in concussion protocol. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is another team that I am currently selling on, even though they looked very good with Mason Rudolph connecting with George Pickens this past weekend. I don't know if it is sustainable. I really do like the Steelers, and I think that Mike Tomlin should stay. He's a great coach. I don't know if he's necessarily lost his voice in Pittsburgh, but I love the emergence of George Pickens. Hopefully that Mason Rudolph or whoever's playing quarterback can continue to connect with him and have good things going his way moving forward. I think when it really comes down to it, though, the Steelers need a quarterback. Kenny Pickett just has a low ceiling, if you ask me, and their backups just aren't good enough to really win games when they really need it. They've got a great defense. Really love Joey Porter and TJ Watt. So hopefully they can keep building for the future and getting better game by game and week by week. Moving on to the Bengals, and they may have come back to earth this past weekend. Jake Browning threw 3 interceptions and lost to the Steelers, to Mason Rudolph of all guys. So their playoff hopes might be done at this point, and they were pretty much done once Joe Burrow was injured, but they still have a lot of talent on that team, and Jake Browning was definitely showing some hope, but like I said, probably came back to earth this past weekend throwing 3 picks. So I don't think the Bengals have a great chance of making the playoffs anymore. 23% shot. according to NFL.com. So I am selling on the Bengals. Moving on to the Raiders, who are a fun team and have been emerging, but have a very low probability with a 7-8 team, but have really been fighting for their interim coach and Antonio Pierce. They really have been playing a lot of fun football. Jonathan Jones, I think that's his name, the cornerback, had a ruthless play against the division opponent, Kansas City Chiefs, where he just intercepted the ball for a pick six and then faked it, fake handoff to a fan, and then stole it back. He's the Grinch that stole Christmas. Sorry, Chiefs fans, but it was pretty fun watching the Raiders. But I want to buy the Raiders, but with a technically losing record right now, I just don't really see it happening. But they're a fun team that I'm rooting for, and I think that they can still win these last two games against the Colts and the Denver Broncos. So we will see. And moving on to the Broncos, who I also want to buy, but I think I have to sell just because their probability is 8%. They also have a losing record, like I was just saying. They had a brutal loss against New England this past Sunday. And that's not really doing them any favors going forward. They really needed to take care of business, and they did not. So, unfortunately, Russ and Sean Payton, I don't know if the experiment's necessarily working. It's definitely an improvement as far as what they had last year, but I don't know what they're going to do in Denver going forward. So we will see. And then the NFC picture looks like it's a little more compact as far as the 1 through 4 or the 4 teams. Like I said earlier, the Niners, Lions, Eagles, and Cowboys have their playoff spots locked up. Their seeding may vary a little bit, but right now it's looking like the Niners and the Lions of all teams will get a bye week, but many things can change going forward in these last 2 weeks. But I want to talk about the NFC contenders and pretenders, just like I did with the AFC just a moment ago. And let's start things off with the highest probability team of the Buccaneers. And they've looked pretty good as of late, the past few weeks, have an 8-7 record and are currently the first in the NFC South. A pretty tight contest as far as the NFC South, but the Bucs emerge and look like the favorite when it's really all said and done. Baker has been taking care of business and looks like he may have found a new home in Tampa Bay. Really looks like sort of a resurgence of his career, and that's awesome. Honestly, I've never been a huge Baker fan, as far as I guess just when he was on the Browns. I liked him on the Rams last year. He was fun to root for, and he's a lot of fun to root for the Bucs taking over after Tom Brady. Filling up those shoes is a pretty tough task. So he's done a pretty good job, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the playoffs. He may scare a team like the Eagles, and the Bucs may still get a home playoff game. They probably will, and that could really shake things up, even if they're playing a quote-unquote better team, or a team with a better record that wins the wild card. Moving on to the Los Angeles Rams, who are second in the NFC West with an 8-7 record. They are currently in my power rankings I already lost it, sorry. I think they're in the 12? Yeah, 12. So they're doing pretty good. They currently have a 67% chance of making the playoffs, but I think that they look like a playoff team. Matt Stafford has been making some really nice plays and connecting with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp all season. Kyren Williams has really emerged as a nice running back. Honestly, like a fantasy champion. Probably going to win some guys some leagues. Might win me a league. Let's go. Knock on wood. Nick, ning, ning. But really excited to see how they fair. Let's see who they play the last 2 games of the season. Does it say? So they play the Saints and then they play the Giants, which are pretty easy matchups if you ask me. Or maybe it's the opposite order. Hold on. That's wrong. I'm wrong. They play the Giants and then they play... Why can't it show me? There we go. Yeah, the Giants and the 49ers. Oh, so the 49ers is going to be a tough game. Giants should be pretty easy. Rams should at least win one of those, have a 9-7 record, 9-8 record. But control their own destiny and look like they should still win the make the playoffs. I'm buying on the Rams. I like what that offense has been doing. Moving on to the Seahawks, I am also buying on with a 69% chance, actually better than the Rams. And Geno Smith is back. Drew Lock took care of business against the Eagles. It looked like the Eagles were trying to lose that game. But the Seahawks have looked pretty good as of late and should be able to win a couple games. They play Pittsburgh and Arizona for their last 2 games, both winnable games, especially with the health that the Seahawks have been showing. Might be able to upset a team in the playoffs and maybe even get a home playoff game. So we will see. They're currently 3rd in the NFC West, so it looks like they are very much a wild card team and will not actually get any home field. So I take that back. Moving on to the on the bubble teams, the teams that I am most likely selling or think that have a further outside shot. Starting with the Vikings, I don't like their chances. Their quarterback position has just not looked good. Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, really anyone but Kirk Cousins has looked pretty bad, and I think that is just going to continue. So I am selling on the Vikings. Don't really want to get too deep into that. Same thing with the Falcons. Although they've looked a little bit better with Heineke at times, I still don't think it's enough. 7-8, they should still be proud. They had a pretty awful record last year, so the fact that they have a almost 500 record is something for them to really pat themselves on the back. Maybe some moves in free agency, maybe a new quarterback can really get that team into playoffs next year. But as far as this year, 10% chance, not looking good. For the Packers, I want to buy, but they are just asking to be sold. They just play to the level of their competition on every week. And to some level, the Eagles do too. The Eagles somehow win these games, and the Packers are losing all these games. And maybe it's Jordan Love. Maybe it's the inexperience of just the lot of guys on offense in general. They have a lot of young wide receivers. But I don't know. It's just not looking great for them. They're going to need some Christmas miracles if they really want to make the playoffs. But I'd say that they have the best chance, and according to their playoff probability, 24% chance, they do have the best chance of these teams in the hunt, in my opinion, because they at least have a answer at quarterback with Jordan Love, or a better answer at quarterback than Jordan Love than these 2 teams ahead of them. Moving on to the Saints, who have a decent shot if they actually won games and wanted to win games, but Derek Carr doesn't seem to get things done. Alvin Kamara hasn't really turned things up too much as of late. And, I don't want to beat a dying horse, but they just don't look like a good enough team. They beat up on some bad teams. They've got a pretty easy division, but they didn't take advantage of it. And ultimately, it looks like they are going to come in 3rd in their own division and let the Bucs take care of business. I mean, maybe they slip ahead of the Falcons, but who cares at that point? I'm selling on both those teams. And The Bears, I want to root for, honestly. I don't think that they have a chance, but 8-9 record and fourth in the NFC North. You know, if there's a complete collapse between the Packers and Vikings, then maybe the Bears and really all these teams in the hunt. Maybe there's an outside shot. You know, Justin Fields has been playing pretty good as of late, but I don't think it's gonna happen. An interesting game for next week that is really exciting is the Miami Dolphins are going to be playing the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Currently my number 1 and 2 team on my power rankings, so they will duke it out for the number 1 spot. Number 1 spot. I don't have that ludicrous whatever sound.
Bruh.
I know, but I have that one, so that one's cool. And
I like turtles.
I still like turtles. Alright, well, anyway, that pretty much concludes the playoff picture. So I'm pretty much standing with what the NFL is posting right now. These teams all have things taken care of business. And these teams are the Ravens and Dolphins in the AFC, and the NFC Niners, Lions, Eagles, and Cowboys all have their playoff trips locked, but their seedings could all vary. In the hunt, we've got the Chiefs, Jags, Browns, and Bills in the AFC, and the Bucks, Rams, and Seahawks leading. I'd say best chances are the Chiefs are gonna make it, the Bucks are gonna make it, the Rams are gonna make it, the Jags and Browns and Bills are gonna make it, the Seahawks, and now we need one more team for the NFC, and I want to go with the Packers. Not sure if it's gonna happen, but that's what I'm rooting for. So I think that is who we're buying and selling on, and now we can move on to our MVP watch. Currently, I think Lamar Jackson is the leading candidate for MVP odds. He, according to Caesar's odds, has -180. So he's the clear favorite. Josh Allen is following behind with plus 1,100 odds. 7 weeks in the top 5. 7 weeks for Lamar in the top 5. Dak Prescott is in third. Tyreek Hill, Brock Purdy. Surprising not to see CMC there anymore. But it looks like it's going to a quarterback, and right now the best quarterback on the best team looks like it's Lamar Jackson, who has been casually putting together a great season. Next game against the Dolphins, which can really help his MVP campaign, as if he beats Brock Purdy and then Tua 2 weeks in a row, that is very big. Obviously, he's not going against these quarterbacks 1-to-1, but we will see. If I had to say anything as far as teams I'd like to see in the Super Bowl, or teams that I expect to see in the Super Bowl right now, I could see the Ravens and the Eagles trending in that direction. The Eagles have actually, I think, gained some momentum. They haven't looked good, but they, I think, at least know that, and they got the monkey off their back and got a win. They have got 2 easy games to conclude the season, or maybe not easy, but winnable games against the Arizona Cardinals and New York Giants, which hopefully can help them build momentum going into the playoffs, as they will play much more difficult opponents, and hopefully they can get a home playoff game, because we like playoff games in Philadelphia, don't we, baby? Yeah, we do. As always, check out Shawnee Football on all social platforms. Check out the links. I got that thing right there. And get some cool NFL merchandise at Fanatics Got a QR code, or check the link in the description. As always, like, follow, and subscribe. And that's pretty much all I've got for now. Stay tuned for more NFL news, updates, predictions, picks, and all that fun stuff. And we will see you next time.